For this multi-part set of lessons on strings, we're going to delve deeper into how strings are seen in Python, and how to manipulate strings, how to find things within strings. So there are a lot of actions that can be done against strings, because we will see this in real life when we write programs that will, for example, read strings out of a file or characters out of a file, and we need to find a pattern, or we need to find an item. So this is going to be very, very useful for us. So let's start from the beginning, from this. We've seen strings before, but let's look at it again. Let's say I want to have a string stored in a variable. So let's say A equals hi there. Okay, so that means A as a variable has these characters stored in this manner. As a matter of fact, we can go ahead and print A simply. Okay, so we can dereference the variable itself and see what the result is, and we will get hi there. Now, another thing about string, and as I mentioned before, we have these characters stored in this order. This is really like an array. Now, it's very similar to a list that we've seen before, but this is more of an array than a list. So what does that mean? That means each character has an index. And as a matter of fact, if we want to see an index here, so let's say I put in 0, then that would be particularly the first character in this string. That would be the capital H here. Let's see if we get that. Here we go. Now let's say I put 3, and let's see what that is, right? So if you have 0, 1, 2, 3, all right, let's see that. And that's lowercase t. So the space in here also is a character. So let's go ahead and do a 2 here. Let's see what happens. As you can see, you get a blank. So that's an empty character here, right? Okay, so if I can access each member using an index, can I do a loop, like a for loop, to get through all of this? And sure, you could, for example, do something like this. For, let's say, letter in A, right? So in that variable, print letter as a variable. All right, so let's see what we get out of this. And there you have it. So hi there, but each character printed, or each letter printed separately, right? So this for loop here allows us to step through all of this, including, if you notice here, the blank character here, or the null character, right? So all of this is accounted for. So having seen that, can we do other things or other methods to a string? Like, for example, figuring out the length of this string, and then based on that length, we're going to go and inspect each character. So we're going to do another for loop, but based on the length of the string. So there's another way to do this. So by the way, so let me just go ahead and kill this out of the way here. So we let's just print the length of this thing. So print len a. All right. So we want to see what is the length of this array, or of this string. And it tells me I have 8 characters. So if I have that, can I use it to control a for loop? Yeah, we've done that before. So we could do something like this. For letter and in range based on, let's say, the len of A, right? And we're going to assign letter to each data member, right? So, so remember, this one will start at 0. So that means I can use that as an index, right? So I can call it letter. I could call it, let's call it index so we're not confused. So let's call it index, right? So what can I do here? I can print a index, right? Why? Because index will be at 0 and it will go all the way up to the length of this. So let's see if we get the same thing we did before. So, by the way, this is a for loop, so don't forget to put your colon there. All right, so let's go ahead and run. And notice you get the same thing, right? So this is another way to use a for loop to step letter by letter in the collection of characters here that make up this string. Okay, so what else can we do? Well, how about finding an item within a string? So we're going to conclude this part by doing that. So let's have a longer string. My name is Drew. How are you? And we want to see if there is a keyword like Drew, my name, in there, right? So we could do something like this. If Drew in A, if it does exist, then we could say print there exists a Drew in this string. Okay? If you want to do an else, so if you want an if statement with an else, just so you can say the opposite, print Drew is not in this string. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and check it out. And there exists a Drew in this string. Now, if I replace in the string here Drew by something else, Bob, and run this again, Drew is not in this string. Okay, so as you can see here, you could look for a pattern or some sort of a sub string within a string. Okay, so this is good for searching. And all right, so we're ready for the next part. So I will see you then.